Good evening, everyone. This is Manifested Mercy, and this is our fifth video that we're doing. Once again, Manifested Mercy in the Alton, Illinois area serves to help those in recovery, help those dealing with incarceration pre, during, and after, and also those who've been victimized, as it's important for people that have had a criminal background or have been deep in addiction and are in recovery to give back to those whom they've hurt. So that being said, just real quick, our first video talked about the importance of safe housing. Our second video was specifically about gainful employment. Our third video was talking about the importance of programming and education. Our fourth video specifically talked about the importance of a faith base. And tonight's video, video number 5, is about family and community reconnection and the importance of this. This is a harder one. And by the way, with all of our videos, they run about 10 minutes long, but they can be expanded to between an hour and a half, including time for dialogue, questions, and interaction for use for conferences, seminars, or groups. And so we're certainly open and willing to come and help lead those type of meetings. But anyways, that being said, family community reconnection. This is actually one of the hardest to implement. And the reason behind this is because in so many cases, when people find themselves coming out of detox, rehab, and sober living, or coming out of prison time, there's a very specific need, but the only person who maybe has changed, if there hasn't been enough proper help, is that person that's coming out of it. And many times they come right back into the same environment. And that environment is not conducive in many cases because they were already committing and acting on those things in the past within that environment. So therefore, those family and friends sometimes have to be abruptly changed. So before I get into the importance of this, I'm going to say something very straightforward that I would tell anybody that came to me for assistance, is if you're going to a home or going to be spending your time with family, friends, or gang members whom you've been affiliated with in the past, who were not just allowing you to act the way you were, but maybe even participating with you or allowing you or enabling, it's a great word we'll talk more about, enabling you to do those things, you cannot go back to that place and have any realistic chance of keeping yourself from going back to the old ways. Okay? Studies have shown us that. Too often people are released back into their same home environment, and there's no probation, parole, backup, or no checking into that home environment. They're just let go. And instead we worry about people who aren't going to reoffend, and meanwhile people continue to go back into their criminal thinking or back into their addictive ways. So that being said, let's get to talking about why the importance of family and community reconnection is there, and then we'll talk at the end of this just briefly about some things that you can participate in or that are needed. So first of all, the reason for the importance of family community reconnection is that there is a love versus enabling. It's important that we are around people who love us. Tough love is part of love. But people who love us enough that they have accepted us because it's not about the choices we made, but the fact of who we are. And those choices for many people is an important part of that process. We need to feel loved, but those same people that love us cannot enable us and allow us to keep doing what we did in the past or go back to what we did in the past. Basically, we need a new normal versus that formal addictive criminal way. I mean, no matter what you do, you're normal. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But the fact remains is we need to live in a new normal, and that new normal needs to be with people around us. They're going to aid us in the prevention of any type of relapse or back into a criminal action lifestyle. So we need friends and family who can provide that love, which includes tough love, because we need to feel as if we're worth it. And I'm going to get back into that right near the end because there's something I want to talk to you about that is talked about many times in Impact of Criminal Thinking class that's very important to understand in regards to feeling as if you're worth it. And that's where the people around us come into to play in this reconnection with family and community after we've removed ourselves from our criminal ways or gone through the detox, rehab, and sober living. I will say that part of that and the importance of this reconnection has to be completely set with transparency and honesty. Now, where I'm getting with that is that the family and those closest friends to us should know everything. Best example I have of that is in my own personal life. At the time that my wife and I first met, within a week of us starting this intricate, are we going to date process? Do we like each other that much? Is there something there? I sat her down and said, I've got to tell you about me. You need to know everything about me, because if you don't, you're going to find out stuff as we go along, or you aren't going to be able to help me through this process if I ever fall back in that way. So that's my personal example, but hopefully that helps apply. And I would be willing to get more into that if I was ever doing a group meeting conference and people ask that question. So family and your closest friends should know everything, and you should never skate around issues. So for instance, if somebody is acting or talking in a way that relates to what they used to be, they need to get called out on that. There's no taboo subject. If they say, I don't ever want to talk about that again, you shouldn't bring that up with me, your comment is, I'm not going to unless you do something that relates to that, in which case I have the right to bring that up. Okay? So concerns, issues, repeated patterns. Talk about them. Bring them up. Don't hide them. Transparency, honesty. I also fully recommend that those that are going to be closest to you, your family members, whether it be a parent, sibling, aunt, uncle, spouse, children, or close friends or roommates, all of those should take programming together, therapy together, and we'll get a little to that at the end. You should do stuff together to learn more about each other, talk more about it. I wish more, well, we'll get into the end, but I wish more prisons before they released them did classes that had the person before they're released. And I know they do this some in detox, sober living, but did more in the prisons, where a requirement the last, 8 to 16 weeks before being released, every other week you'd have a session for an hour long with your family that you're going to be living with, and helped them understand who you are, the process you've gone through, and how much you recognize of the mistakes and choices you made, the criminal acts, and the addiction. So you might ask the question, why? Well, there's something right at the center of this that we would talk a lot more about in a conference, but it's about otherwise you're alone. And a person going through these processes that is alone will be immensely more likely to fail. It's a high number. So here's where I want to get into what I was bringing up earlier. It's something called the zero state. Now, if you've never gone through an impact of criminal thinking or an impact of crimes on victims class, zero state is a way of criminal thinking, but it's also a place where you feel as if you are worth nothing. And for the recovering addict and for the criminal or the ex-felon, I mean, there's a lot of different words that can be used, so let's not beat around the bush. A person that finds themselves nearing or in the zero state where they feel like they're worth nothing, they are nothing, nothing they're doing matters, will do whatever it takes to not be in that state. And unfortunately, the long-term focus and thought process, the habit you go back to will be, well, if I have more money, or if I get back in with the crowd that liked me when I was using, or liked me when I was in that state. Maybe someone's an alcoholic, and so they're going to the bars again because there they were everybody's friend, because everyone was inebriated. They will do whatever it takes. And because they will do whatever it takes, the chances of them keeping themselves removed from criminal ways and from relapsing are slim. You might as well take away everything else they've worked hard for, because it will go away fast if they feel like they're worth nothing. That being said, I want to finish with this. I brought this up earlier. What can people do? Now, I will say that there are 3 groups I know of that are fairly good helping people with somewhat of that. What do I do? How do I reconnect? Al-Anon and Nar-Anon are great for the families. So that's definitely 2 classes, but that's sometimes more for the family and the community than it is for the person themselves, because then they go to a separate class, NA, AA, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, home groups, which are great for them. So we need more classes like that that are going to help. One night it might be specifically for the family. One night it might specifically be for the recovering addict or the person that's been incarcerated. So I also know that Smart Recovery has a family class, and that's a great option too for people that are working on it. But this is not an area that's been a great need of. You sometimes have to find local churches, but there's not a whole lot the state is doing for it. So if you are somebody listening to this and you're trying to think of something to do, look into starting up a family and addict class or a family and incarcerated class to bring them together. We are part of a group, or we like a group on Facebook called Fathers Against Recidivism, and love it because it's a place specifically about supporting men staying out because they've got children they should be thinking of taking care of, spouses, etc. So just that type of idea is then classes like that are going to provide for that. Again, it is so important. If you are the parent, spouse, child, friend of a loved one who is going through these issues that Manifested Mercy serves, they need you. But they need you to be a non-enabling, hard love person that's going to do everything they can to help them because they are set up to fail. So you're going to help give them chances, help them with the things they need as long as they're this new normal. And you will also hold them accountable when they do choose to do things that kind of go back towards their old way before they actually go full-blown back. Doesn't put the responsibility on your shoulders because people will do what they want to do, but at least it's a helpful aid. Hopefully this has been helpful. All this is expandable, and we'll see you next time. Remember, you are loved, and you are more than the choices you've made.